Hi, everybody, Hans. It's about 8 o'clock now, and it's been my procedure to be here on time, waiting for all of you. But to hold off with my presentation while people begin to check in. I've spent time thinking about what I would talk about today, and I'm looking forward to sharing my thoughts with all of you, and really looking forward as well to the follow-up after this presentation is over. And so we're going to just spend a few moments in the pleasantness of relaxation. No demands on any of us right now. Maybe a bit of discomfort or anxiety. Some people tapping their feet while the time moves on because they're not used to the silence of waiting, or like me, listening to the sounds of silence. And I didn't mean that as a pun. As soon as I said that, I began to smile, because it took me back to a time when I was totally distant from the world. That was the time of the Beatles, and it was a different world back then. We're going to wait until people begin to check in, and so I'm going to ask Hans, are people beginning to check in? Okay. Oh, it's not even 5 after yet. I just looked at my watch. For those of you who do not know, several years ago, when Dr. Chu and I got together, it was a totally different world. And for those of you who do not know and are signing in, I'm going to share with you a bit of history. I had been a psychologist for many years. This was 1996. And in those years, I had developed a very comfortable practice and was doing therapy 7, 8, and when things were busy, even 10 hours a day. One day I was driving to work, and I appreciated not the driving to work, but the fact that it would take me about an hour to get home, which would allow me to just settle in. And I was driving to work thinking about my first patient. And a voice came into my head and said, "It's such a beautiful day. Why go to the office?" Not having experienced it in the way in which it occurred, I wasn't certain how to deal with it, and so I answered myself by saying, "You have to go to work because you're going to have a patient waiting for you." And the voice said, "She hasn't changed the subject of your sessions for at least a month. You know exactly what she's going to say today." And I answered that voice and said, "Yes, she's not ready." And the voice said, "Why not send a substitute in there? It won't make any difference because until she's ready, she's going to be doing the same thing." Well, I got to the office. I started the session. And I have to tell you, it was extremely difficult for me because that voice kept piping in throughout the session. By the end of the day, I realized I was in trouble. As I look back, if I had to interpret it, you could call it burnout. At that point in time, it was just a matter of fear. Because I didn't know what else I would do if I weren't going to be doing therapy. And that fear is what possessed me. I worked very, very hard the next few months, fighting that voice, working very hard to pay attention to what it is my patients were saying. And I blossomed, that's my word, to almost 300 pounds. That's when my wife entered the picture and said, "What's going on with you? You have to lose weight." Well, actually, that was a reprieve because I would close the office, get to a Chinese restaurant very nearby with a book, and I would sit and read, and because I needed to lose weight, every single day I would have steamed vegetables for lunch. One day, a Chinese gentleman in scrubs walked up to my table, pointed a finger at me, and said, "Don't you eat anything other than steamed vegetables?" And without asking, pulled out a chair, sat down, and began to talk with me. That was without knowledge at that point in time, was my introduction to Dr. Joseph Chu, who became my teacher and mentor. And he trained me. He was doing a study on the hypothalamus for himself at the medical school, needed an assistant, enlisted me. I not only helped him with that study, but with the outline of what it is that was necessary. In 3 months, I lost 84 pounds. The study was complete. Dr. Chu suggested, because I had, quote, burned out, unquote, that I go into the weight loss business, and that's how AccuWeight Loss began. I'm going to start now with what I have been thinking of sharing with you, and thought that that introduction would be helpful because I was completely bound by the fear of having burned out and what would happen to me, and simply gave in to Dr. Chu and opened a weight loss practice as part of my therapy practice. And my initial patients were psychotherapy patients who volunteered until AccuWeight Loss got on its feet. The title of today's talk is Fear and Weight Loss. And in thinking about the title, the thought of the circumstances I just shared with you came to mind, because it was the fear that was in on me and that I could not share with anyone. I was too embarrassed. I was too fearful. I was confused because it made no sense, because up until that point, I loved working with patients, watching their lives change, watching them grow and throw off some of the burdens of pain and anxiety and change their lives. But I couldn't personalize it at that point. And as I said, I was almost 300 pounds. Therefore, the title for tonight, Anxiety, Fear, and Weight Loss, is the key. I'm going to share one other story with you. It's about a gentleman who has lost almost 60 pounds. The exciting part of the having lost the 50 pounds, the almost 60 pounds, is the fact that he's dramatically changed in the 6 weeks that he's been on the program. In what way? He's given up his pointless fear. And what do I mean by that? To look at him, there is no doubt that he's overweight. When you talk with him, there's no doubt that the weight was affecting him. He was tired. He had no energy. He dragged himself through work. He didn't sleep well. It was suggested to him that he be checked for sleep apnea. And overall, he was extremely unhappy. After losing the 55 pounds, you couldn't shut him up. He was telling everyone, whether they would listen or not, what he was doing. He began to realize after our talks together that what he was doing impacted on no one but himself, and that the only reason he was losing weight is because he had found a plan that worked, was following that plan, and by doing so, had begun to take charge of himself. And so to the word fear, I'm going to add the word love. When he was frightened, when he was using food for comfort and escape, he had separated himself from the rest of the world. He felt he couldn't share with anyone because he had no rational reason for explaining why he was indulging as much as he was. He became a closet eater. He was telling people things that were not so with regard to where he was and what he ate and what he did. And when he came to acute loss, he was at his last legs. By the way, he was not brand new to the program. He had done it before. The interesting thing is that he was beginning one step at a time to actually look at himself, realize that he had begun to take control of his own behavior, and learned one of the things that I try to teach. That is, the only thing that you can control is you. Now, just recently, I shared with you that a brilliant physician and psychiatrist by the name of Sigmund Freud said that basic personality and character is formed by age 5. Age 5 is a child. And that child who lives inside you, who is the basis of your personality and character, is only 5 years old. That's a child. And that child, even though, look at me, he lives inside me. I have conversations with him all the time. I'm in almost my middle 80s. He's only 5 years old. But he and I have conversations all the time. Something I'm going to share with you in a few minutes. What's the point? The point is that when I'm frightened, when I'm scared, when I'm under pressure, when I'm bored, when I'm annoyed, when I'm unhappy, I hate how I feel. He lives inside me, and he is totally aware of how I feel. And because he exists only to bring fun and joy into my life, he bugs the living daylights out of me. He never stops talking. And what does he talk about? Relieving my pain and my discomfort by putting something in my mouth. Now, children being children, they bug you and bug you and bug you and bug you and bug you until you pay attention to them and in some way in most situations, not all, compromise and give in. And here's the interesting thing. The moment you give in, that child in you is satisfied, and the moment is over and done with for them. But you and I are left with guilt of having broken down and given in. The happiness on the part of that child is only momentary, because something is building again, and the same thing is going to occur. Now, children have no understanding of consequences. They're too young. I did not say they don't understand punishment. I said consequences. And I have a picture on the wall of a father sleeping in a recliner. And the child is looking at him and looking at him, dashes towards the chair, pushes down on the footrest. The father is sitting upright and awake, starts chasing the boy, and the boy says, "It was worth it." Now, the worth it was only momentary. We can only project about the consequences, and each of us have had different experiences growing up with the kind of environments that we were born into and the kind of discipline that we were subject to. One more story, very quickly. Maybe you've heard me before, maybe you haven't. I was very young, second grade. In those years, they did not understand what we do now called learning disability. I had attention deficit hyperactive disorder, and I was dyslexic. I couldn't sit still in class. The teachers were subject to my behavior, my restlessness. I survived because my intelligence allowed me to remember most everything, and so even though I could read, I could answer questions. When I was in second grade, the second grade teacher decided to take me under her wing. And what I want to share with you is the fact that she acted as my defense against those kids, and there were many of them who made fun of me, called me names, and made me feel terrible and miserable. And that was modified because they feared her, and they were angry with me because she was my protector. To make a short story long, one day I followed her home, hitching a ride on the back of a trolley car. And the following morning, there I was, sitting on a bench outside the principal's office, waiting for my parents to come to school. Now, you can't tell me that there was anything other than me being in love with that woman for being my protector. Well, that's carried through to today because it's payback time, and that's what AccuWeight Loss is all about. I want to help you overcome that fear and how it locks you in. And the only way you can really do it is to communicate. And I need your help. Because I can't make you communicate. I can't force you to communicate. But what I do know is that all of us are the same. There is some level of addiction in us, and we use food to comfort ourselves, to escape, because the momentary relief we get from the food overpowers us, and in part because of the little child who lives within us. So here's what I want. Press yourself, push yourself. I am AccuSmoke@AOL.com. I am 973-243-5556. I am AccuList@AccuWeight.com. I am part of your secret group on Facebook. People who talk, who express themselves, begin to integrate their personalities. That child loves you. That child loves you because that child knows it cannot exist without you. And you wake up because without that child inside you, all the fun and joy would be gone. So you need that child as much as that child needs you. And the first thing we need to do is communicate with the child, to integrate him and you, because you are one. And the way to integrate is to have a conversation. Here's what I want to hear. That at least 3 times this week, you found a time to sit in front of a mirror. I want you to call that child by his/yours first name. That child knows who you're talking about, and you know that child. You've talked to that child in your head, but here I want you to talk out loud. And I want you to talk about temptation and fear and escape, because I'm going to just jump ahead and give you the bottom line. When you are successful in taking your life back again and integrating it, the fear is going to ebb, diminish, and will no longer control you. It will spill over into other areas of your life. Why? Because when you begin to love yourself, it feels so darn good. I like being me. And the only reason you have to like yourself is to know how good it is to feel good to be you. And that will spill over into other areas of your life. And the law of attraction will take over. What you send out into the universe is going to find something similar. And that's what's going to come back. I want some emails. I want some telephone calls. Simply saying, here I am. 3 times this week I had a conversation with my child self. And this is how it felt. That's it. 3 times this week, I sat down had a conversation with my child self, and this is how it felt. And then I want us to spill over into creating something for all of us, and that's what the AccuList, and that's what this is all about. I hope you take what I've said this evening, because I'm filled with emotion right now, wanting to connect with all of you and to watch us all grow together. I'm going to shift back to Hans and questions and answers. Before I do that, accusmoke@aol.com or 973-243-5556. Thank you for listening. Hans? The answer is no. And let me explain why. It takes 5 ounces of milk to make 1 ounce of cottage cheese. Therefore, it will not satisfy you. It will change the chemistry of the program. It's similar to the reason why you can't have Greek yogurt, because if you'll notice, the first ingredient in Greek yogurt is sweet cream. So, sorry, the only time you can have cottage cheese is if you feel at a lunch engagement that you have no option or alternative, and going to factor in that 1 ounce of cottage cheese, in other words, 4 ounces of cottage cheese is your 20 ounces of milk, and to just ask for some cottage cheese on a rare occasion, and that would be the only time that I would say you might consider it. So the answer is no. No cottage cheese. Hans? Wow. How important is transition? It's so important that I find it immeasurable. And let me tell you why. We all know how to put on weight. We simply ignore, dig in with our feelings, give up to the power of food. Many of the foods that cause us to put on weight are just that. They're really not healthy, but we do it because of the power and the taste which pulls at us. Those things, for those of us who are truly overweight, for everyone, but mostly for those who are truly overweight, are extremely powerful. We know how to get there. But unless we have a plan, we're going to be back here again and again and again. Because what happens is, it's very easy to slip back into our old habits. Now, one of the words I've begun to use instead of transition is stabilization. I've lost the weight. I'm where I want to be. Now I want to stay here. But I don't know how. I've read lots of things, but I don't know how. I don't have a personal plan. He tells me, she tells me, they tell me. Everybody has an idea. Don't do this, do this. But I don't have a plan. And then there's the second fact. If I, Dr. Schwartz, tell you what to do, I believe that in a week, 2 weeks, a month, 3 months, you're going to get up one morning and say, why am I not living like me? Why am I living the way Dr. Schwartz wants me to live? And the moment you do that, the plan goes out the window. Therefore, transition or stabilization is critical, but you should not be entertaining it until you're very close to reaching your goal weight. Hans? Seaweed is seaweed. It's a vegetable. The only issue with any vegetable is how is it prepared. I personally buy a product at Costco, seaweed. It comes in individual packages. It has some salty flavor to it, and it's a very delicate but nice snack. So seaweed can be used on vegetable days. It's a terrific snack, but it's not for dairy days. So the answer is yes. Next question, Hans? How many avocados? Well, let me answer this way. If we're using avocado as a fruit, I personally would never have more than one. So one avocado is one fruit. If on a very rare occasion I wanted 2 avocados for 2 fruits, that would be fine. But avocado can also be used as a vegetable. So if you use avocado as a vegetable, I would cut it up, and the amount you can use is by weight. And let me interject that with regard to the salad dressing that I created, which is made with avocado, as long as you're using it as your salad dressing and not being sneaky about it, as long as you're using it as your salad dressing, it is not part of your 1.5 pounds of vegetables. Hans? Okay, I'm going to have a bit of a longer answer for this question. First, the specifics. If it's on a milk day, outside of the hours of 12 to 6, take your antibiotic with 2 ounces of additional milk, not part of your regular 20 ounces. Here is something, though, that I want you to be very aware of and deal with. Antibiotics kill bacteria indiscriminately. So it's going to affect your gut. Your gut is 70% of your immune system. So whenever you take an antibiotic, at times 2 hours away from the antibiotic, because it's then out of your stomach and into your bloodstream. I want you to take a probiotic, and I want you to continue to take that probiotic for at least 2 months after you've stopped taking the antibiotic. Reason: your gut is 70% of your immune system. If you replenish with probiotics, you're doing yourself a huge favor in not getting sick again and strengthening your immune system. So, if you're taking an antibiotic and you have to take one in the morning before food, in the evening after food, on a dairy day, take it with 2 ounces of milk, and on a fruit vegetable day, have it with a fruit. Next question, Hans. By the way, before Hans responds, people, I appreciate his being on today. He literally just flew in from overseas, a 10-hour flight, and the fact that he is on the air with me tonight is most appreciated. Next question, Hans. First, let me point out that the word hunger is a subjective one. Point number 2, the human body has difficulty differentiating between thirst and hunger. Your body is 70% water. My body is 70% water. I can live for weeks without food. I can only live for days without water. When you wake up in the morning, just by virtue of the fact that your body has been under the covers, your body has maintained weight by perspiration, not sweating. And so you're at your lightest weight and dehydrated in the morning. I personally, first thing every morning, after I brush my teeth, and I do it this way, you don't need to, I take an 8-ounce glass of room temperature water. I put in a half teaspoon of concentrated lemon juice because it alkalizes, and I see it as both refreshing, it gives me a kick, and it helps me get through because I do not eat before noon. So, water affects hunger, lemon juice for alkalization, concentrated because the concentrate has no sugar in it. It should go a long way. And if 1 glass of water is not enough, do 2. Next question, Hans. I have one major suggestion and one minor suggestion. If it is not a problem for you, the Walden Farms creamers are absolutely marvelous. They're of different flavors. They taste good. They substitute for a creamer. I personally, in the morning, make myself a cup of coffee. I use the original cream, which is flavorless, but it gives me the color and the taste, and I use an artificial sweetener and do that every morning on the way to work. So I think it's a marvelous substitute, the Walden Farms creamers. The other thing is, and I've never really pushed it, is to learn to drink the coffee black. Next question, Hans. It's interesting that you say you get full. I would spread out the timing when I have a milk day. If every once in a while you don't finish your milk, there is no problem. My big concern is that milk is your major source of protein. Protein is absolutely necessary for cell division. And therefore, as best you can, spread it out, fill yourself with, let's say, 4 ounces of milk in 5 different opportunities, but do the best you can to have all of your milk. Next question, Hans. First, I'm very excited to share this whenever I'm asked this question. In the 21 years that AccuWeight Loss has been in business, we have had at least 8,000 type 2 diabetics on the program. Every single one of the people with type 2 diabetes, including type 2 diabetics who are on insulin, every single one, we have a process and a procedure, every single one has been clinically cured of their diabetes. So the answer is a resounding yes, but you're the one who has to do the work. Next question, Hans. The answer is yes, and I'm not being facetious. Tomato, like avocado, is either a fruit or a vegetable. So if you want to use a tomato as a fruit, be my guest. I caution you, however, not to cut tomato into your fruit salad. So if you use it as a fruit, 1 tomato is a fruit. If you use it as a vegetable, it's by weight. Next question, Hans. The MAGIC protocol is a process that I have created. It has to be taught on a personal basis. The teaching takes maybe 10 minutes. It is a methodology that literally prevents you from cheating. It has 3 steps. Once you've learned the 3 steps and act out the steps of the protocol, it will be impossible for you to cheat. And for those of you who have that difficulty and break down and give in, if you substitute the magic protocol, the rule of 21 will kick in, and within the month, you will substitute the magic protocol in greater and greater force to actually prevent you from cheating on any level whatsoever. Its success is unlimited, and the use of it is unlimited. So if that's a difficulty for you, contact me. I'll teach it. You use it. And I love the feedback. It's twofold. Dr. Schwartz, it really works. And thank you, Dr. Schwartz. It's given me back control. I sense from you, Hans, that there are no more questions. So I'm going to thank you for staying awake. You must be exhausted. And I will see all of you soon. One last thing, please, for those of you who are still there. I need something, and only you can give it to me. Both Facebook and Google say that they will not recognize me because after 21 years, I do not have enough reviews, recommendations. So if you would please actually like me on Facebook and do Google and write a recommendation or a review and send it either to the AccuList or post it on our Facebook secret group, or send me an email at accusmoke@aol.com. I would appreciate it very, very much. Thank you all for listening, and I hope to see you again real soon.